Right, let me ask you something straight off the bat. When she's reaching that peak moment, why do so many of you blokes completely miss the look in her eyes? Hello there. I'm Dr. Amelia Wright, and I've been working as a consultant obstetrician and gynaecologist for over 25 years. Throughout my career, I've had consultations with thousands of women, and you know what I've heard most often? That intimate time with their husband has become nothing more than a duty. Just another chore to tick off the list. That's the sad reality. But here's the thing. When we close the consultation room door and women feel safe enough to be truly honest, they tell me something completely different. They'll lean in and whisper, "Doctor, when he does it this particular way, it's so intense I literally have tears in my eyes." That's what they actually say to me. The problem is this. Most men spend their entire lives repeating the same routine, the same positions, over and over again. Women need both their bodies and their minds to open up together before they can experience truly explosive pleasure. But men miss all the signals. They just stick to their own rhythm, their own preferences, completely oblivious. So while she's physically there in bed, her mind has already wandered miles away. Today, as a doctor in my 60s who's listened to countless secret confessions from real women, I'm going to share with you the 3 positions that women privately admit give them the most extraordinary pleasure. These aren't just random positions. This is about understanding how to awaken a woman's body and how far you can take her sensations. If you properly execute even just one of these 3 positions, I guarantee her breathing will sound different that very night. If you're a man, you absolutely cannot afford to miss what I'm about to tell you. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and turn on notifications. Sharing this would also mean the world to me. Right then, let's get started. The first position is the modified side-lying intimate position. Now, you've probably heard of spooning, but simply lying on your side pressed together isn't nearly enough. The crucial detail that women have confessed creates intense pleasure is the angle. This is what you need to do. The man positions himself behind the woman, using both arms to gently hold her waist, pulling her pelvis forward toward him. Have her drape one leg over yours. In this position, don't go too deep. Instead, move slowly, taking your time, and with each thrust, subtly twist your hips and pelvis. At this angle, you'll create a grazing stimulation along the inner walls, and I've actually heard women describe it as absolutely mind-blowing. Because you're lying sideways, there's less psychological pressure on her, and the skin-to-skin contact is maximized, which helps women build pleasure whilst feeling completely secure and safe. One woman in her 60s told me after trying this, "For 20 years my husband did the same thing, but when he changed just this one angle, I felt like I discovered a completely different world." That's a direct quote. The second position is the enhanced posterior angle position. Now, the rear entry position is common enough, but many women have told me that when it's done in the basic way, it simply doesn't deliver that explosive climax thereafter. Instead, try this variation. Have her place her elbows on the edge of the bed, or a low table, lowering her upper body slightly, whilst keeping her knees apart and rising up on her toes. This naturally tilts the pelvis, which completely changes both the depth and the angle. I've heard countless women say, the sensation of that angle touching the inner wall was totally different from anything before. Additionally, when the man holds her waist from behind, whilst using one hand to either embrace her lower back or shoulder, it provides a sense of security that helps her relax. When she's relaxed, her sensitivity increases dramatically. A patient once told me her husband tried this after 40 years together, and she said, "I honestly didn't know my body could feel like that anymore." The third position is the intimate face-to-face Lotus position. In all honesty, most men aren't even aware this position exists. Here's how it works. The woman sits facing the man on his lap, wrapping both legs around his waist. The man sits with his legs slightly apart to create a stable base, then gently lifts and lowers her by holding her waist. What's critical here isn't the rhythm. It's the closeness and the eye contact. Women have described how that eye contact and shared breathing made my body respond on its own. The simultaneous stimulation of sight and touch is incredibly powerful. Your chests, stomachs, and inner thighs are all pressed together. Your entire bodies feel as though they've become one. And as the woman's pelvis naturally rocks back and forth, the stimulation intensifies. The beauty of this position is that men can make minute adjustments to depth and angle, and the emotional connection explodes because you're feeling each other's breathing. One woman told me, "I'd never looked into my husband's eyes during intimacy before. When we finally did, everything changed." These 3 positions aren't just about physical mechanics. They're combinations of environment, angle, and pace that make both a woman's body and mind respond simultaneously. Women who've experienced these methods in real life have told me, "I might forget everything else, but I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life." If you men understand this and actually give it a go, I promise you'll see an immediate change in her eyes and hear it in her voice. But before you try these 3 positions, there's one principle you absolutely must remember. Speed and intensity are determined by the woman, not by you. One of the most common mistakes men make is insisting, "I know what I'm doing," and just sticking to their own rhythm regardless. But women only feel deep, profound pleasure when their bodies are properly prepared and their arousal has been built up gradually. So start slowly and gently. Observe her breathing and the subtle changes in her body, then adjust your rhythm to match hers. A man once told me, "I slowed down like you said, and suddenly my wife started guiding me. It was like we were finally dancing together instead of me just doing my own thing." The second tip is making micro adjustments to angle and pressure. Even with the same position, changing the angle of your hips by just 5 degrees can completely alter which areas are being stimulated. For example, in the side-lying position, if you push your hips slightly forward, it pulls the cervix backward and stimulates the vaginal opening instead. Understanding this difference means you can create entirely different sensations each time. The third tip is using your hands and mouth simultaneously. So many men get focused solely on the position itself that their hands and mouth just stop moving. But if you naturally and gently stimulate her neck, the area behind her ears, the curve of her waist, and her breastline, the pleasure her brain experiences multiplies exponentially. Especially with the Lotus position, simply whispering in her ear or letting her feel your breath can double the sensation. Now, here's what men who fail have in common. They only focus on the end result. When you treat climax as the sole objective, women actually tense up and their sensitivity gets blocked. Instead, enjoy the natural intimacy in the process. Take time exploring each other's bodies. That's what truly matters. Finally, a critical point about physical safety and comfort. Particularly with positions like the posterior angle or the Lotus, which involve deep hip engagement, there's potential strain on the knees, lower back, and pelvis. Use cushions or pillows as supports, and everything becomes far more comfortable. One gentleman told me, "I put a pillow under her hips like you suggested, and suddenly she could relax completely. The difference was night and day." If you remember these 3 positions and these tips, and if you respect her signals whilst trying them, you won't just be a man who's good in bed. You'll become a man who remains in her memory for the rest of her life. Now, at this point, many of you chaps ask me, "Doctor, when should I use these positions, and in what order for the best effect?" This is actually where success and failure divide. Even brilliant positions can switch off a woman's arousal if the timing's wrong. For instance, if you start with the intense posterior position right from the beginning, the stimulation might be strong, but for a woman who isn't properly warmed up, pain will register before pleasure. On the flip side, if you begin with the Lotus position, you'll close the psychological distance quickly, but the physical stimulation might be too gentle, leaving her thinking, "Is that all there is?" So here's what I recommend based on actual consultations. Start with the gentle side-lying position to relax both her body and mind. Then move to the Lotus position to maximize the visual and tactile connection. Finally, use the posterior angle position to create that explosive climax. This creates a natural flow. There's one more element you need. It's called the sensation reset through position changes. When she's just about to reach climax, deliberately pause. Kiss her lips, caress her neck. Maintain that physical intimacy whilst you transition to the next position. Her brain registers a sense of loss from the interrupted pleasure, which makes the next climax significantly more intense. A woman in her 60s actually told me, "That brief pause made the second climax absolutely indescribable." The key isn't the positions themselves. It's the flow, the coordination, and the sensitivity to read her signals. If you understand this and put it into practice, even the same 30 minutes will create an entirely different memory. What I've shared with you today are these 3 positions and the hidden secrets of angle, pace, and sequence. But ultimately, the real core isn't about techniques to satisfy women. It's about respecting and awakening her sensations. Start with the side-lying position to ease her body and mind. Move to the Lotus to synchronize your breathing and deepen your bond. Then finish with the posterior position to bring her to that peak. This flow isn't just about physical intimacy. It's about giving her absolute certainty that my man is different. So many men spend their entire lives repeating the same patterns, completely unaware of why their wife or partner has become indifferent. But you can change that, starting now. Tonight, just once, follow the sequence and tips I've given you exactly as I've described. You'll witness an expression in her eyes, sounds in her breathing, and responses from her body that you never imagined possible. I truly hope this video becomes more than just information for you. I hope it becomes an opportunity to revive your relationship. The moment you understand a woman's pleasure is the moment your relationship and your confidence will reach their own peak together. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. I'll continue bringing you real conversations that no one else dares to have, but that you absolutely need to hear. Tonight, I hope you become the man she'll never forget for the rest of her life. I'm rooting for every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. This has been Dr. Amelia Wright.